It's that time of the day for you to get comfy, kick back, relax. You are now lounging with the Bonteheuwels. Hey loungers, welcome back to our show. I am Candice.
And I'm Garth.
And you are
Lounging with the
Bonteheuwels. Tonight on our show, we have the legendary, they call him now a veteran DJ.
Us. Veteran
DJ, DJ Eazy. Welcome to our lounge.
Thank you. A vet works with animals. I don't have any animals. I've got no cats, no dogs. The neighbor in Bonteheuwel called the SPCA when I had a dog, so they came and took the dog from me. So it's a touchy subject.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, my dog, Trixie. Rest in peace, Trixie. Because I didn't have a tag or a thing for the dog.
Oh.
I was like, 6 or 7, and and it's one of those stories where when I was born, there was a dog. So Trixie was my dog, but now there's no more Trixie. But the word legendary, or I don't know, I'm still very uncomfortable when people say that because I'm not. I feel like legend sounds like an old person, but I also feel like legacy. You know, when you think legendary or legend, and I'm not a legend, but I'd love to leave a legacy, if that makes sense. And in terms of veteran, I'm not a veteran, but I'm also not a rookie. Do you know what I mean? I'm not new to this. When I got onto the scene, there were already other people. Whether you want to say they've created, pioneered, or actually built it, that's a different story. But some of them did, and I'm fortunate to be in circles with those people or consider them my peers. So I am... For when you say DJ Eazy, in terms of people box you and they think hip hop DJ. Yeah. So I'm like 3rd generation hip hop. When I got there was already like 10, 12, 15 years of hip hop in Cape Town, in South Africa, in Africa, whatever. And I was just like, oh, what's this? This looks cool. But before me getting involved in that, I watched the movie Breakdance, and we breakdance in our classroom. But we didn't know what it was. You know, we just watched the movie and then you come to school. But I also listened to David Kramer that time because that was the music that was popular. And then a couple of years later, when someone introduced me to this, let's call it the hip-hop movement or the hip-hop music, it was like, okay, this is some vibe. Whether it was crisscross and we all wore our clothes back to front or inside out, whatever. We did that. So, but thank you for having me, man.
No, I think you are pretty legendary. I think so.
Thank you for saying that.
You have played and toured and done things that I think people need a refresher of who you are. But before we get into DJ Eazy, can I just share something?
Of course.
We share a birthday.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are both Leos, 12th of August.
Put it there. I'm not going to forget that.
That was so awesome. And that's when you were saying, oh, I see this person liking this picture. Like, I'm like, oh, God, he's the 12th of August too.
Nice.
Yeah,
okay, that's good.
Cool. Yeah.
I know of 2 other people that, one other person actually that has their birthday on the 12th of August, so that's cool.
Now you know me.
Now I know you too.
And you know my niece, she's also on the 12th of August.
Wow.
And I have a cousin that's also on the 12th of August. We're special people.
All that tells me is that a lot of people were busy in December before New Year.
Is it December or November?
I don't know. November.
Yeah,
Guy
November.
Fawkes, misschien was het Guy Fawkes.
So before we get into DJ Eazy, tell us a little bit about Tyrone Da Silva.
So Tyrone Da Silva, I grew up in Bonteheuwel. You know, people say, where are you from? Then it's like, do you know where I stay or where I'm from? Because I don't stay in Bonteheuwel. No, I stay in Lansdowne, but I'm not from Lansdowne. So Tyrone, born in the 70s. I'm a 70s baby, 80s kid. So born in about South Peninsula Hospital. 10 days after my birth, my parents got a house in Bonteheuwel. That's where I spent all of my, they call it formative years, you know, from baby, learn to walk, learn to ride a bike, learn to, I don't know, talk or do whatever, breakdance, watch karate movies. In our street where we stayed quite a distance from the school that I went to, because obviously I have 2 older brothers, 8 and 7 years older than me. So to school, because it was a bit of a distance to walk to that specific school, I didn't stay at home when it was school time. I stayed with my aunt who lives across the way from the school. Up
Okay.
until I think my second or third year in school, I came home and our house was burgled, and I was the first one to come home.
Oh no.
And when I walked in, you know how, I mean, I don't know if people still do that, but basically these guys were looking for something. So all the drawers of the chest of drawers was
Yes.
out and everything was on the floor. So when I walked in as a 9-year-old, I just imagined my aunt and my uncle was cleaning the house.
Yeah.
Because look at, you know, so that it geturned. You know, everything was like upside down. But I didn't realize that. And they weren't home, which normally they would be at the house. But no one was home and everything was upside down. Obviously, I went downstairs and told the neighbor who called the cops or whatever. And then it was not cool for me to stay there anymore, kind of thing. So then we figured out another plan or get like a me to walk with. But yeah, I went to school in Bonteheuwel, primary and high school. Originally, I was going to go to Livingston High. But on the day of orientation, I had this, I don't know if you remember in the early 90s, there were these bright backpacks. It was like pink and purple and light blue colors, and it was just a cool. It was always like a surf thing on it, although none of us would surf. It was like beach with Timberlands and the jeans.
You know.
But I got to the orientation, and this man walked past us, and he was like, "If you think you're coming to school with that bag, you in for it." And I told my daddy, "Can we go home?" And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "I don't want to come to the school because this man was mean to us." So
He's already judging you.
exactly. So I never went back to Livingston, which is fine. I went to
Yeah.
Arcadia Senior Secondary. At high school level is when I was introduced to hip hop, and probably 40% of the teachers I encountered, engaged, or whatever with said, "You're wasting your time with this hippity heap stuff, this rap stuff." Funny thing, and it's not like a wow, we're like a pega, but most of them call me now and say, "Please come talk to the kids, please come talk to the kids." And I'm like, "Oh, I thought this rappity rap stuff was a waste of time." Yeah. So, but yeah, so the story is, I am the youngest of 3 boys. Like I said, 2 older brothers, mom and dad. Dad was a chauffeur for a, can you call them a telecommunication company? Philips, the guys who invented the CD player.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that, but they invented the CD player. And obviously, Dad worked for the company, so he's really proud to work for the company. Their head office was in Eindhoven in Germany. And he worked for like German people who would come here, and he would be their chauffeur. And Mom was a receptionist, and then she worked like as an office admin person or whatever. But my dad worked as a chauffeur, and the one thing that I'm very grateful for, he passed away last year in May, not from COVID, but it was in lockdown. And COVID, obviously, thank you. And COVID, obviously, is a touchy subject because we couldn't visit him. He went to hospital on Saturday, and by Sunday he was gone. It wasn't COVID; it was like a heart attack. But I guess he woke up alone, panicked. No one was there. People that, because you know, when you're in your deathbed, you don't want your car keys or your bank account or your sneaker collection or your CDs. You want your family. So
Yeah, you want your
it was
nearest
pretty scary for him, I guess, when he woke up, and it was a strange room because he was, obviously a bit disillusioned because on Saturday when he went in, and he suffered from dementia, which obviously means he had already struggled with remembering certain stuff. He could remember things from a long time ago, but he wouldn't remember recent stuff. So Saturday was obviously a blur to him when he was taken to hospital, admitted to hospital, and not have us there. Sunday morning he woke up and obviously in a panic. He has people poking, prodding, doing stuff, and then he panicked, and obviously he didn't survive there. But the thing I was going to say, I am super grateful for the opportunity that he had as a chauffeur when he was working as a chauffeur as a child, because they don't make a lot of money, and also where our country was in terms of apartheid. Because my dad was light skinned, very light like skin, and I'm obviously darker. When we would be in Muizenberg or Simonstown, for whatever reason, buying stationery, people would literally comment and say to him, "He's a nice boss for buying the maid's child stationery." So that was kind of part of my story growing up. For real. Like for real. Ja, die meneer is baie, die zegt baie gaaf meneer, ek koop vir die help se kind. Stationery. Wait, what's that? Oh, skryfbehoeftes. Yo, I know Amerikaans. But the thing I was going to say, no, but here's the thing. So I grew up in Bonteheuwel, and our first house, I think, our next door neighbor was a mochi that sold cooksisters on a Sunday, and she was selling, Creole chips and that type of stuff. And this is a long time ago. But I'm saying that was kind of the community. Everybody knows everybody. When there's a funeral, like you fight and we go. Doesn't matter if we like the person who didn't like it. There's going to be acne, so we go. And in our street was a guy who had a printing business. So if someone had a wedding, he printed the invites. Then he gives us extra invites so we could show up even if we weren't invited because there was spare invites because he printed the invites. So we're all going to the civic center. So that was the fun part. But then later on when we moved, I think it was my final year of primary school, going to high school, our house, which you obviously didn't know at the time, but my dad's mom, so my grandmother lived with us and she was already 90 something. So she couldn't, our previous house was like what they call a masonette, like a flat with stairs.
Yeah.
So she couldn't do the up and down. And because of her being there, we got onto the waiting list and we got now in line to get a house. So we got a house that was now flat, a cottage. 2-bedroom house. Mom and dad got ripped off by this church brother that said he was in construction. He'll build, but he took the money and ran away. But we had a plan. They were going to build extra rooms and what and what. So it took a while, but they did build on. But grandmother came to stay with us. And that was the motivation for moving there. So when we were staying in this house, our next door neighbor legit was like a merchant. He was like selling drugs to kids and to people that bought it. And the other neighbor, the eldest son, was like involved in gang stuff. So that was literally my my high school year. It's like on the right is gangsters and on the left is like a merchant. So if I'm in my room looking through the window in the backyard, I'm either smelling what's being smoked and smelled, or I'm hearing what's happening on the other side. And obviously you don't become a product of your environment or your community, you become a product of your choices. So I had to make a choice to not participate in that stuff. I think throughout my high school year, I was robbed every single year. Like of a watch or something, just going to school or going to the shop. But there was one time in high school when I visited a girl, and then on my way home, these dudes pushed myself and a friend of mine against the wall, and they were like, if you guys are going to come back here, you need to decide if you going to be part of this gang or that gang. I was like, what? We don't want to be part of this gang. But anyway, and we were like liking rap music, man. We want to be part of a group, not a gang. But the thing I was going to say about my dad, so as a chauffeur, when he was taking me to all these places, it actually opened up my mind because my friends, all they knew was what they saw in Bonteheuwel. So
they just
that
knew
was
their surroundings.
So when my friends saw pictures of Chapman's Peak or Simonstown, Builders Beach, they literally thought it was overseas. They didn't understand it was still in Cape Town because they've never been there. When I went on the cable car for the first time, and I think I was 11 years old the first time I went in a helicopter ride, and we weren't rich. It was just access to the opportunities because my dad worked for this company. So they had like a staff party, and the millionaire boss, like it is in most cases, the rich boss, he phones his chum and he's like, bring your helicopter and take the kids or whatever. So I'm the driver's son, so I'm there. I go to like these fancy golf club, what they call it, golf courses. Because they're going to play golf, and I'm there with my dad and having lunch, whatever. So we go, and I'm like in a helicopter. Then I come back to school, and they're talking about, oh, did you see they found a body at the baths at the swimming pool?
And you're like,
and I'm like, oh, I was in a helicopter this weekend. That's like a completely different story. So, but it opened your mind, man. Then it's like, like as a child, when you put that red switch and the blue and you take the paper and you keep it in front of your eyes, then the world is red. But the world isn't red. You're just looking through red paper. So it's that kind of thing, man. So when I traveled, it kind of went, okay. And my dad was very supportive and encouraging to say, like, whatever you can do it, man. So especially when it came into the era of, the end of apartheid, and we were now allowed to vote, and we were allowed to go to Camps Bay or go to this train or drink water from this tap or sit on this bench. My dad was like, if you can get your license to drive a truck, get it. If you can get your license to fish or do whatever, just do it. So I've always been this guy that I didn't want to say I want to be like a master of everything or like a jack of all trades or whatever, but I pursued a bunch of different things because it was like, why not?
Why not?
And my dad didn't like the word when you say I can't. It was like, you don't want to, because there's no can't. It's like, I don't want to. So if you want to do it, go. And something that I would say he left with me was like, if you don't want help, then no one can help you. If you're not willing to learn, then no one can help you. But if you're willing to learn, then no one can stop you. And that's kind of been my thing. So when you say Tyrone, a lot of people know me from Bonteheuwel as this guy. I was actually very clever at school. In primary school, it was like first in class. And then years the turn, it's always either money or a girl. But there wasn't money in my case. So in standard 4, there was this girl that I
Standard
bought.
4
My
already?
bro, what's it, grade 6 they call it
Yeah,
now?
grade
so
6.
I bought this girl a TV bar, my bro, and that changed the whole
Course of
my
life.
whole life.
That's a game
The game had changed, yeah. Chocolate, my bro. So that was mostly Gucci and Prada right there. TV bar.
Of lunch bar.
Exactly. And then high school was like, nah, man, this. And also, I'll be honest, a lot of the rap music we were listening to was a lot of garbage. They're talking so much nonsense about stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
we were listening to the stuff. And it was like, nah, forget the man, forget school. We're going to do whatever. So I wasn't really paying attention a lot. And that's probably why teachers said, you're wasting your time. But as soon as I was done, and also because after school I couldn't go study, there wasn't money because this dude that was supposed to build the house ran away with the money. So I left school because of dad's job. I think my matric bill was on Thursday and Friday morning I had a job. Basically, it was like that. It wasn't like I
Cool.
went for. Literally, it was like, oh, Mr. So-and-so said Friday morning you must come.
Okay.
So Friday morning I went. And I think when I went, they actually told me, no, there's no work. And I'm like, didn't that man say? So I went home, obviously sad, and I took a friend with, and I was embarrassed because my friend thought I could hook him up, and now both of us were going back. And then I told my dad. He obviously got this man in trouble that told us to go home because this man didn't know the boss said come. So on Monday when I got there, Sumo got the promotion was now, and Deborah was now in trouble.
In the opmaak,
Yeah. So I got a job. I think I did that job it was like a summer job. Let's call it, December, January, whatever. And then a girl that I had met in matric year, her dad had his own business. So I worked with him also. And I didn't like it because it was like, nah, man, you're my girlfriend's daddy and you're my boss. And it's like, like I saw this man more than I saw his daughter, man. So I was like, nah. So I think that survived like a month. And then I worked at Cape Technicon. And because I worked at Cape Technicon, people just assumed I studied there because I was like not even 20 years old and I would go to tech every morning. But I worked in the library. It's where I met the guy who started the first youth center or youth. They call it, like you get a nightclub. This they called a nightclub, like with an L, because it was
Okay.
like not a dark space. It was like this. And instead of alcohol, it was like non-alcoholic drinks, and they had
Yeah.
basketball and pizza. And it was like,
Wow.
good music. It wasn't like chasing goodness or whatever. It was like more like a youth vibe. So I met this dude at the Technicon when he came to make photocopies. And that's why I started DJing, actually. Prior to that, I wasn't DJing. I was just exposed to the culture where this guy in Bonteheuwel, rest in peace, Arnold, he was in a wheelchair. You might remember him from base days or Mitchell's
he
Play
sounds-
days. So I used to just go with Arnold to like house parties. He would DJ people's house parties, 21st, birthdays, whatever, and I would go with him because he was in a wheelchair. So you go, you carry his bag or you push him with the wheelchair. But he was also a cool guy. He's like a cool friend of mine, way older than me. I think he was my brother's age already. And my brother worked in a record bar, a place that sells records of vinyl. So he brought lots of records home and he was doing the same thing for people in church or friends of his. So I was exposed to that for a while. And up until, so that was the youth center. I did 94, 95, 96. Some guys that came to the youth center was talking about going on a tour for a year, doing drug awareness programs in schools everywhere. East London, Swaziland, everywhere. And I was like, this sounds cool. And again, remember, my dad took me just around the corner, but now I can get travel. And other people are paying for it, man. I don't have to pay for this stuff, so I'm going to go with. So let's go. So I was the sound engineer for a year. Basically, we did this Addicted to Life tour. We did the choices. So there was different topics. We did sex and HIV education. We did, obviously, training with Sanko, which was like the organization for the drug thing. So we did that in schools everywhere. And then what happens is I would set up the sound and we'd wait for the group to either change their costumes. So they would do like drama and, like skits like they would do at schools. But then sometimes when we set up, then they still busy. Then it's like you have to let Rigo 1, 2, check 1, 2. Then it's the next mic and then it's like check the monitor. So then you play beats. And I was like, okay,
Nice
like maybe I should DJ. And the minute there's sound here, the kids come out because there's music, and that's how you would draw them. So I was like, cool. So when we came back off tour, I went back to that dude, and I was like, okay, let me play here, man. Like, let me make this a thing. And funny enough, which is amazing if you think about it, it's 2021. I'm now at the SABC radio station that we know, Good Up FM. I'm there for almost 10 years, going on 11 years. But in 1995, on a Friday, for like, I think 4 to 5 months, I would go to the radio station and take music there for the 2:30 date with Dimitri Jagels on Good Hope. But I didn't in my wildest dream think I'll work there
You'll
one day
end up there.
and be a producer there. Although I like DJing. And again,
Yeah.
I understood that obviously DJing is different from presenting a radio show. Because Dimitri Juggles wasn't a DJ if you think about it. And lots of DJs that say they DJs, they talk on the mic at the radio station. They don't DJ, and move the crowd. So that's kind of the Tyrone story. But
Okay.
after that tour with those guys, it became like a DJ Eazy. So prior to that, I wasn't DJ Eazy. I was Easy T because I was rapping. That's when I know this guy from.
Okay.
Donkey Giant.
Yeah, long time ago. Thank goodness there was no Facebook, so there's no pictures. There's no Instagram.
So on high school, you started rapping.
In high school, I was rapping.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
And
But isn't it like a
basically-
fun story also? But that's how you met Really D? Also
yeah,
on school?
so high school, it must be, what do we call it now? Grade 9. So standard 7. Standard 6, I meet this guy called Paul. His nickname was Ozone. And only later on I figured out why he was using that name. It had nothing to do with Ozone later. It's just because of another famous B-boy name. But Paul's name was Ozone, and he would rap. And there was this girl, Natasha, in our school. Obviously, she's not going to know who she is because I'm not saying her surname. But there was a Natasha in our school. And Paul was crazy in love with this Natasha girl. So he made these raps for her, and I basically thought I could beatbox. So I would beatbox when Natasha comes down the alley, and he would rap, and I would rap. Beatbox, and he would rap.
Smooth.
So then he would rap for her, and I would beatbox. So that was like the thing. So kind of like, I think Paul's grade wasn't that amazing, and a lot of people, funny enough, thought I spoke English as my first language, but I didn't. I speak Afrikaans. Afrikaans is my first language. Yeah, lots of people did that, and my mom also got that kind of thing. So my English grades was always better than that. And I was like, like I said, I wasn't a lazy writer, so my schoolwork was always on point. So this girl in my classroom, not Natasha, another girl, she was like, oh, there's a competition on the radio. You must write a rap for Warlords. You remember Warlords?
Yes.
So she was like, if you write this rap, and you're going to win like 1,000 rand. I made better with 1,000 rand.
was a lot
that was 100,000 rand. If you think about it back then, because no one's giving you 1,000 rand. So remember my aunt that I told you about the story that I go to. So after school, obviously you listen to the radio when you're there. My aunt had a TV, but she listened to the radio to stories. You know, that stories with the brass are talking. So that was like her thing. So the one day, I'm like, I need to listen to Radio 5. It's now called 5FM. I need to listen to Radio 5 because her name is Arlene. Arlene said, they got this competition. So I wait, Alex J is the DJ's name.
Yeah.
Alex J is
Alex
doing
J
his
is
thing. Eventually, here's this Warlords ad. Okay, you write the rap and then you send it in. And prior to that, the only person in my family was my brother who won something also via the radio, which was, there was a movie called Top Gun. And he won like either a badge or a t-shirt. I can't remember. Because of this thing. So I was like, give it a shot. It's like the lottery. If you don't play, you don't win. So let's play. So I was like, okay, so now remember, apparently I speak English well and I can write the raps because I rap with Paul and I have another chummy that we rap with. So I write, I don't remember, but I write the whole thing called cut rap. Like 20 lines or whatever. I didn't know about bars at the time. So I write it, and obviously there's no email, there's no Facebook. You go to the post office, you buy a stamp, and you send that thing, and then you wait. And then a couple of weeks go by, and then it's like, okay, today they're going to announce the winner. So it's like, we're there. And you're sitting, like you would sit around the TV, you're sitting around the radio. The hi-fi, we called it. And Alex J is doing it. And Alex J says, in studio, he's got Prophets of the City. And I'm like, my brother. Because remember, at this point, the only thing I have is a paper, a picture from the Jelly Bean Journal out of the week in August with the Prophets of the City in it. That's on my wall. So he's got them in the studio. But now I'm thinking, what are they going to do with chips, man? So then he goes, the winning verse, they're going to have DSA rap the verse. Okay, give me a bit of, I'm like, what? So now, I was, like I said, I was a bit of a nerd. I had like one girlfriend at school at the time. I just knew, okay, give me a bit of
Hy's 'n nerd met 'n girlfriend. Nerds vandag sukkel as
No. So Doogie Howser made us look cool back in the day. Remember Doogie Howser? So I was like, okay, give me a bit of Doogie Howser is going to have nothing on me after this competition. So I'm waiting and I'm like, okay, cool. And eventually they like, again, not. So it was like Easy T. That was not the name. So if you didn't know me, you didn't know who it was.
But obviously your friends knew.
Yeah, those who know, they know. So it's Friday afternoon, I think, and they announce it. So Monday, I'm at school, and I'm like, yo, Arlene. I think Arlene had a boyfriend, but I was like, yo, Arlene, I'm going to marry you, man, because you got me this opportunity.
Exactly.
Because she told me about it. I would never have done it if she didn't. And also, to be honest, that's what it's about, man. You don't need 5,000 followers or 50,000. Like, what?
You just needed one opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What good is 100,000 followers, no, if you don't even like yourself, man? Do you know what I mean?
No,
so you have to be
true.
happy with
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
And lots of people have like 1 million people or 50,000 people following them and liking them, but then they go home alone, man. And then
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
like, deal with that. So for me, it was just like, no, you just need one person, because sometimes that person believes in you more than you do yourself. Because even though she said do it, it wasn't just like, I'm going to do it. She
Yeah.
was like, you should do it because you can win. And at
Yeah.
that point, I don't think she knew what she meant, or to me, what that moment meant. And I'm also very grateful that I was able to years later reach out to her because of the power of
Yeah,
social
I
media.
was
So
gonna
years
ask
later, I found
you,
her on
yeah.
Facebook. And I was like, hey, Arlene, hope you're well, blah, blah. I'm not sure. And again, I'm not like a idiot who think everybody knows me. So it wasn't like, hey, Arlene, you know who this is.
Yeah, it's easy.
You know, this was happens in America. It's like, y'all know who it is.
Yeah.
No, we don't know who it is. Tell us who you are. So I didn't say, Arlene, you know who it is. I was like, hey, Arlene, how are you? Blah, blah. You know, you got a beautiful family. She had
Yeah.
lost her husband, sadly.
Oh.
And I knew him. I actually knew his family. His family were neighbors at our old house. So I knew him. And I didn't even know that after school dad got married and had a bunch of kids or whatever. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I'm sorry to hear about him. You know, this and that and that. Listen, I need to tell you of late, because now I've got a bit of a profile and I'm, you know, more people are talking to me like you guys are doing tonight. I've been sharing this story with people on how I got into this rap, hip hop, whatever you want to call it, industry, game, scene, culture. And I'm saying that because it's different things to different people. And you are part of that story. And I want to just say, you know, while you're still here, thank you.
Yeah.
And whatever. And then I also reached out to another person, also a female. So Arlene told me about the competition. But before that, another girl that I was actually, you know, like you think you're in love, it's puppy love. I was like, yo, this is the most beautiful girl in the world. Like, look here. What did the gangsters say? Een aan saam met jou, dan kan jy hom maar wegvat. It was stupid stuff like that. So I was like, and I was like, Righty, what you gonna do, een aan? You don't even know what to do, but you say stupid stuff like that. So I saw this go and I was like, you are my bro. Because the closest thing to like a crush was what? Cindy Crawford in the 80s? Or Alyssa Milano from Who's the Boss?
Yeah.
And remember
yes.
Dallas, Bobby Ewing had a daughter with Priscilla Ewing. My bro, she was also
her
a babe.
name?
I forgot.
I was so
And there was a
And there was a
She
show
was on
called
Santa Barbara.
and there was a show called
Yeah.
Facts of Life with like a bunch of girls in like a house, I think.
Yeah.
So, but that was like the thing, man. So I
Yeah.
was just like, yo, this girl looks like those model girls,
Yeah,
or whatever. So anyway, after school, from my aunt's house to where I live, my own house, I walked past the park, and we were never really supposed to walk past the park because that's like where they rob you and stuff happens. So I was just like, yeah, I heard she lives there, so I'm gonna take a chance to Damon. So right, so I walk, and as Faith, I'm gonna say Faith,
Okay.
as Faith would have it, she's outside the house. So now I'm just gonna go over and say like, you know, whatever. So it was like, say hello, whatever, and she invites me into the house, and I'm sitting in the lounge, and then not even 5 minutes, and we hear this Ford Granada pull up in the driveway, and she's like, my dad's gonna kill you. But she's not even joking. She's like, my dad's gonna kill you. And I was like, what? Like, are you joking? No, my dad's gonna kill you. I'm not supposed to have people in the house. I'm not supposed to have boys in the house.
But
And I
you
was like,
invited me.
exactly. So, and again, so I was not in an English class in school. I was in an Afrikaans class. And as most schools would have it, the Afrikaans kids must make fun of the English kids, or they must say
it was
whatever.
always
So she was in an English class, actually. So she told me her dad's going to kill me. And then she came up with this brilliant plan, like in seconds. Like, I did not think of it. It was also like, what do you call it, a masonette flat, but we were not downstairs in the living room or lounge, whatever you call it. So, you know, her dad is pulling up. And it's quick, but it feels like forever. Like the car pulled up, then you hear that handbrake go grrr.
Yeah.
And then you hear the car switch off. Then the door opens and he's probably getting his bag out of the boot. And then it's like, you just waiting, my bro. She was saying he's going to kill me. Now I'm waiting to be killed. Like, what's going to happen? And before I know it, as he gets to the door and you just see this big shadow of this man coming through the thing, Like, he doesn't greet me. Like, he's just got that vibe where it's like, it's like a head nod. And his body language and his face and everything else was literally saying VSJ. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
And she had a brother. And I'm not saying her name, so I'll say her brother's name is Gary. So she was like, no, he's here for Gary. Which is obviously the saving grace, or like, saved by the bell, or saved by the high, whatever you want to call it. And she grabs a cassette and she gives me the cassette and she's like, he's here for Gary. Gary used his cassette or whatever. So I take Gary's cassette. It wasn't my cassette. Thank you, Gary. I never gave it back to Gary. So I take this cassette home. But remember, I had the biggest crush on this girl.
Yeah.
So what do you think I made with the cassette? Just like girls kept whole nut papers from the 80s.
You
I'm
kept the
like this
cassette.
cassette. So I get home and I play this cassette. But I have to play it when mom and dad's not there, because I think the words Public Enemy was written on the cassette. But it wasn't a Public Enemy cassette. There was one song of Public Enemy on, but it was written Public Enemy. So just the name Public Enemy sounded like bad people. For me, I was like, my mom and dad's not letting me listen to this. So they were not home. I played it, and LL Cool J was on there. Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff was on there. They had a song called Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
It was on that cassette. It is so weird how I can remember every single song that was on that cassette, because I obviously played it in its chops.
Yeah.
Like Nightmare on Elm Street was on there. The song from LL Cool J was called Candy. I Feel Good About Candy. There was a song on there by Public Enemy called Fight the Power. Yeah. There was a song on there by KRS-One, My Philosophy. And I played that a lot. And that was like I was like, what music is this? What is this? And I wanted to know more. And then shout out to DJ Sinus, and we called him Blummy. His name is Ricky from Bonteheuwel, because I knew people that knew him. And Arnold, the guy from the wheelchair, had said, look here, if you are trying to get into this move, that's the bride you must talk to. So he put me onto all of those guys I heard in the cassettes. And around the corner, like, these in the hood, man. Some aunties selling tracksuits, some aunties selling meat, some aunties selling not Jordans. We were doing what? Vince Carter's. We're doing Saucony's. We're selling like Lacoste and that vibe. So there was a man around the corner from our house who worked at like a magazine place, and they were selling international magazines. It's like a paperweight. So they get it as paper. They don't get it for the magazine, what it is. So it's not like, this is a hair magazine from America, it's 100 Rand.
Okay.
This is just paper. This is just a book. So you would get it for like 10, 20 Rand, but at CNA it was like 100 Rand. So he was getting rap pages and Write On magazine, and that's how you learned about these people. But like I said earlier, I was a bit of a nerd, so I spent a lot of time in the library. Because there was good girls there also, but I spent a lot of time with the library, and I would check the Time magazine. But why I mention the library and why it's important to my story, after the competition where I win 1,000 Rand and I get invited to what's called Red Nose Day, where Prophets of the City will perform, and then I'm going to meet them. Because remember, they had the studio in Johannesburg, I guess, when they were in the studio with Alex J. I'm sitting in Bonteheuwel. I'm at the library, and as I come out, this one guy, I think his name was Chris, and he's like, yo, Fat Sook for you. And I'm like, what? And he was like, Mr. Fat, but he said, Fat Sook for you, Fat's looking for you. So I come down the stairs and I'm like, my brother, what is happening now? So they're like, no, Mr. Fat's looking for you now. And he wasn't, I don't think he used the word Mr. Fat. I think it was Fat, But obviously later on we understood it was Mr. Fat, So I get to like what we call the game shop, no? So Mr. Fat is there at the game shop. You see this bra with the jeans, and it's got graffiti or cokie written all. You buy a jeans, you take a cokie, and you write all over your jeans. Yeah. So I see this bra with the jeans, and he's wearing a little shirt, and he's got the Steven Seagal haircut, long ponytail, and I'm seeing this bra. He just looks like you don't want to get on the wrong side of this bra, but he's like the most friendliest bra ever. He's like, "Are you the bra that won the competition?" And I was like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Yeah, whatever," and he's like, "Cool. This is it." And I'm like, okay, he had a crush on a girl that was at my school. So I think this was also his way in. It's always a girl, I told you.
Yeah.
So his vibe was like, okay, you must have, okay, cool, I'm going to stick it at the school tomorrow because I'm doing whatever. After school we can do. And he was literally reaching out saying he's going to teach me about bars. He's going to tell me more stuff. He's also going to give me more music. And then he told me about the bass, of course. But I had told him that the Red Nose Day thing was going to happen like in March, I think. And I think this competition that I won was like in January, February. But he was like, no, you can meet them before the time because he's brassa with these people. And I was like, what? Like I literally went home and told like everybody, but none of my friends was as excited. I promise you. I actually remember one night getting something from Mr. Fat. I'm trying to remember what it was. And I made as if he gave me like a gold watch. And I remember telling my friend, I'm going to show you what I got. You don't know what I got. I'm kidding you. You must see what I got. And when I showed it to him, he was like, Oh, it's kind of like, is that it? And I was like, my bro, do you understand, man? It was very weird. And I guess for us, when we fell in love with hip hop and the culture, we were the weird people from our homies.
It related us weird.
Yeah, we were like, and again, again, I don't think I was ever socially awkward, or I was ever a kind of guy that didn't want to mingle with people. I think I was always being approachable, whatever. And shout out to my parents; they were good people, because they gave us, we had manners, yes and please and thank you and what. And again, like the hip hop stuff I was exposed to was very much like anti-establishment and anti the man and anti-government, maybe government or anti-authority. So it was like, so you didn't gravitate to it at first, but again, because I had like a heavy, what would the word be? I had like a very good foundation and like a spiritual foundation with the family.
Okay, yeah.
Family was like, I'm not saying we were perfect family. I'm saying it was like a vibe where we were like, okay, this is you. You do good and you treat others like you'd like to be treated kind of vibe. So there was that balance. So with my brother working in a record bar, and it happened to be a Christian record bar, with the music he was bringing home, it was like, okay, cool. And then one guy in America was kind of bridging that gap where he was what people would call a man of faith or a believer or a Christian, but he liked this music because he grew up in the Bronx in New York. And his way of talking to the youth, or the urban youth, they would use that term, or the youth in the ghetto, or the the youth of the communities or the projects, whatever, he would use rap as a medium. And me and my homies in Cape Town, we were like, yo, imagine we did this. And it was funny because obviously we don't know what we're doing, but it was like, yo, we're rapping for Jesus. That was like our thing.
I must be honest, I never caught on to that, eh? Like,
No,
for me,
lots of
it
people
was
didn't.
very controversial.
Yes, but for me too. Like I said, you can ask my brother, when he brought the record home, I was like, my bro, you're going to hell if you're playing this kind of music. I was like, I said that. I'm like, my bro, the fact that you have this record in our house, all of us are going to hell. Like, it shouldn't be in our house. Like, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, but you would remember. And I'm just that kind of Brahmin. You don't have to be my chummy. We don't have to have supper together. We don't have to phone each other for our birthday. But if you are part of the story, or you in some way played a role, I'll give you your props, man.
Yeah.
And it's the same like if someone had beef with you. Forgiveness doesn't need reconnection.
Yeah.
I can forgive you, but we don't have to be brothers anymore. And in the same way, just because I'm giving you your props doesn't mean I'm going to invite you for a braai next week. It doesn't. I'm just saying, it's not taking anything off me to say, nah, shout out to God. He did that, man. And people need people, man. You don't exist alone. So I remember, because of the music I was exposed to, and as much as I thought this was the devil's music that my brother brought home, there was this guy who was probably the most prolific colored or brown man as an entertainer, who started this radio station, which wasn't really a radio station. This is before Mark Ainsmith did Westgate Mall. It was Westgate Mall, but he used to say Westgate Mall. But it's a mall. He used to say Westgate Mall, and he had Radio West or West Radio there. And there used to be a talent show. That's where I was know you from.
In Mitchell's Plain also, in Town Center.
Yes, there used to be Town Center.
With the orange spons.
So there'd be the Town Center thing, and then in the Westgate Mall, they'd have the stage and have the talent show there. And then like someone from like Bears is like the judge. Someone that sells furniture for a living is like the judge on the right. He's who was singing or whatever. But anyway, it was quite good. I met Friday and I met some other cool people there, Brother A, and I met, I think, I feel like Jamali performed there somehow. I don't remember, but there were girls. There was lots of people always singing there. But anyway, I digress. The thing I was going to say is, I met a dude in Bonteheuwel called Luigi, and he had Radio Luigi. But this dude had his story. Like, I was like, this brother's got stickers.
DJ Luigi.
That's the brother. So he was there, and I think he was like, there was this hardware store. You know those shops where you can like have a house above the shop? Like a flat or whatever. Then they have like the balcony of the flat, which is now the roof. So you can actually stand on there. Like, there's always a dog in the wood. There's always a dog running there, or someone's washing or whatever. Or like, so this brother would literally be on the hardware's balcony thing, or the house by the hardware, and he would put the speaker there, and he would just promote the shops. He'd be like, okay, the butchery is selling this for so much, and the cafe's got this chips, and he was saying, so he was that brother. So he would do that, and then in between he would just play like the weirdest music. He would play like Somewhere Out There from a movie soundtrack, or you'd play like Peebo Bryson, and then the next number's like Sybil. It was just weird. And then it was like he would then have vouchers, man. So you would get like a voucher from the shop, and you'd get like he would give stuff away. So I was like, yo. So he was there for a couple of weeks. And then I was like, okay, I've listened to this thing that my brother played over and over, which was this rap, which is like we call the gospel rap or whatever. And I didn't write my own rap. And I was like, yo, I could go there because they don't know this number. I'm just going to rap it because I hear it all the time. So I went there. And I rapped the thing. I rapped, and Luigi gave me a prize, and I was like, "Nah, because Luigi gave me a chance." So for me, it's like all that stuff brings you to where you are, man, and that's part of the story. So I was like, "Yo, Luigi," but like I said, my sort of immersion into the culture, my whole vibe of like. So going to the base was because Mr. Fat was like, nah, this is where we get together. And it's like, this mensen from Atlantis, Belhar, and this mensen traveling from Mitchell's Plain. And I met these girls in high school. One was a year younger than me and one was a year older than me. They were sisters and they lived in Mitchell's Plain. And it was like, if it's too hectic on the trains, then they would stay in Bonteheuwel, get a lift home or whatever. And then sometimes Fat, when he had a car, he'd give them a lift because you're fat. They need a lift or whatever. And we knew them from the base also. Eventually, I started traveling home with them because the church I was with was in Mitchell's Plain, and it's like youth on a Friday, and then you sleep over at someone's house. Because Saturday we're going to Westgate Mall. We're going there to the competition because there's Brasa that's gonna the Juvenetics or the Dynamics from Bonteheuwel, or and it's like a fast song, and then it's like. Masterpiece comes on, the Brouwer de Rose is doing something. Remember those brass like theater? And I remember this is quiet because this is. You remember that vibe?
Feel like, I've heard goth.
Why is goth laughing?
I don't know.
Because that's just what would happen. And this is like before Gom, before Amapiano, before anything.
I feel like Bonteheuwel and Mitchell's Plain was like the hub.
Bonteheuwel, but Mitchell's Plain is uptown. Mitchell's Plain is like legit.
But you also spoke about how many times you traveled with a train,
people can argue the best B-boys from that era came from Mitchell's Plain. The best DJs, the best MCs. Like Dream Team was this big collective from Beacon Valley. Hammer was a member of that team. I remember him. And this other guy, Ashley, I know.
That passed away.
B-boy, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Shahin's from Mitchell's Plain, Reddy D's from Mitchell's Plain, Azul is from Mitchell's Plain, so many others.
Wasn't your rival dance group from Bonteheuwel again?
From Bonteheuwel,
yes.
And we were the best of friends. That's what
That's crazy.
That was like family.
Wow.
But I mean, that's sort of my story, I would say.
Yeah.
That's that.
That's
and then
Tyrone,
fast forward, it's like, okay, then like I said, I did this tour, I came back, I'm now DJ Eazy because I'm doing this DJ thing. But I understood, obviously, there wasn't, again, for me, I believe for an industry to exist, someone must make a product. People must buy the product and then you make a profit. That's an industry. Like we have a fashion industry in South Africa. But music industry, there's a few people who are enjoying the fruits of that, where it's like so-and-so makes an album and they sell 10,000 units or whatever. Like I worked in cell phones. I had a cell phone store and I worked as a salesman in cell phone stores. And I remember Danny Kay's dad was a director for Cell C. And literally, there was a time when you could buy a SIM card and you get like a Danny Kaye and Mendoza single with the thing or whatever. And that was like obviously a marketing gimmick or whatever. But I remember once just chatting to his dad when he was in Cape Town, just in how the system can be rigged, man. And then my first job, I actually forgot to mention this. Now, when I say job, it's actually a casual job, so it wasn't a thing. But this one girl that I dated, her dad was a manager at Musica, and I worked at Musica. And what would happen is, when I'm in the shop and the phone rings and someone says, do you have the Celine Dion CD? And we didn't have it, I would then write it down. And then they'd phone later and say, do you have the Lionel Richie CD? But it's maybe not a CD that we have in the shop. It's like a new one from Lionel Richie or whatever. So then at the end of the day, I would then say to him, Mr. So-and-so, people called for this CD. Then he would tell the buyer. And then when they have their meetings, the guy would like, we must get this because people are looking for it. But you can rig that system because I could phone randomly 5 different shops because different people are going to answer. They don't know I'm the same guy phoning, and I'm like, do you have the Loon Hefner CD?
Okay.
And then they go, why? Because people keep calling. Like 6 people called today to ask you have the Loon, but it's actually me, my brother, my cousin, his girlfriend.
Nice, trying to
We
get that
calling
CD in.
we calling the Cavendish store, and then tomorrow we
Yeah.
call the Mitchell's Plain store, and then we
Yeah.
calling the Canal Walk store, and then when they meet, they're like, what's Loon Hefner? Why? Because people keep calling for the CD. We must probably have the CD. Then when they have the CD, we go back and buy it.
Okay.
They don't know we buying it.
Yeah.
They're just going to say, it's sold out. We got it, but it's sold out. But we bought it, and we are fans of Loon. Or we are
Yes.
the brothers in family, the producer
Yes.
and people involved. So you can rig the system that way. Because remember, something doesn't have to be hard to sell. It's hype.
That's hype.
Coke is
Yeah.
not,
That's
not
all,
an
yeah.
amazing cool drink. It's just the marketing behind it is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it is.
McDonald's makes the worst food, but because they give you a toy, the kids want
Yeah.
the Happy Meals. But they are not happy kids. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it's the gimmick. So with
Yeah.
the same with the music, some of the best, considered best music, people don't like that songs. Like Nicki Minaj sells 1 million records, and one of the rappers I can quote said, is she really good, or are 1 million people that dumb? Do you know what I mean? Because it's popular doesn't mean
It's good.
That it's good.
exactly.
Yes.
Hitler was popular.
Yeah.
To who?
He wasn't good.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Trump was popular in some way.
yes.
So I'm just saying, for me, staying in your own lane and knowing your role, or playing your role is very important, man. So
Yeah.
I was
how have
immersed
you-
into that whole vibe, and then to not want that limelight or that fame thing or whatever. It was more. I'm a party cat. I love people. I love hanging out. I did a lot of stuff, sort of, that got attention, but I'm a behind the scenes guy, and like I always make the example, like you don't see your lungs, but you need your lungs. So
Yeah.
now my job in radio, I'm the lungs of the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't see it, but without it, it can't function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I've been doing the show with D for a long time, but when I say working, it's only been 6 years of producing the show and being credited or paid as the producer. Stuff I did before was because he's my chummy. So I just work with him, and he'll ask me to come play on the show. They didn't pay me for that. I would just DJ on the show. I would give D music, or I would get interviews. His very first show on Good Up, his very first night he was on air,
But Easy,
I
you
organized his
still
guest for
haven't
him.
told me how you actually met Reddy D.
I told you, the Red Nose Day.
Was it the Red Nose
Yeah,
Day?
they performed.
Okay.
But
okay.
I don't think it wasn't like a meet where we took each other's numbers and we met. It was actually
okay.
Mr. Fat to take me to his house.
Okay.
And again,
okay.
it's weird because I guess it's energy or whatever.
But did you know who we? Like, obviously, you know we.
No,
was
so Red
prophets
Nose
of
Day.
the
So
city,
Red
yeah.
Nose Day is the day that Alex J. I already got the check. They sent you the check, and it was
Okay.
Volkskas Bank or whatever. I go and
Okay,
get the
okay.
check. Yeah, it's old school. I literally bought.
Hey, R50 op Volksbank.
I bought this thing. It's supposed to be like a karaoke machine thing.
Okay.
It was the speaker that had like a mic input. You could echo and you could play a cassette and you could record on it. And it was like, I bought this thing with the
Okay.
1,000 rand they gave me. I bought it for like 700-800 rand. I can't remember what the rest of the money. But I got the check into the bank, and when I cashed it out or whatever, I bought this thing. When Red Nose Day came, I went and they performed, and I saw D doing his. They performed, and he did a routine which we consider, it's called I Got the Power, which is the Snap song. He was doing a routine with that, I Got the Power, and I remember my mind being blown by that. So when they came backstage, I went and I just met them, and obviously I took, Alex J's hand and said thank
Yeah.
you, and I was like, hey, thank you so much. I'm the boy that won the 1,000. And he didn't remember. It doesn't matter. He probably gives lots of people money or prizes or whatever, but for you geeking out because this is a man that's on radio now. You're
Yeah.
standing by him.
Did you geek out when you met Prophets of the City?
Of course, because
Okay,
none
okay.
of my homies from Bonteheuwel was there. I was there.
Yeah.
But again, remember, like I said, I had opened and looked at magazines for a long time.
So you were like beyond the Prophets of the City. You were like jazzy.
No, but I was going to say this. When I looked at those pictures, if I looked at a magazine where someone was Mr. Whoever, he didn't look like he was from Bonteheuwel. When I looked at a Time magazine and someone was Businessman of the Year or a model, like, when you go to the movies and you see the Peter Stuyvesant adverts, those brasa with the quiet boats or whatever, and everybody you thought if they smoke Stuyvesant, they're going to have those girls in those cars.
Meanwhile, cancer.
Exactly. So for me, it was like, I looked at these books and it was all this stuff, but no one looked like me there, man. So automatically, as a writer from the Cape Flats, you feel like you don't have a part there. Because the
Yes,
people who are
yes.
Businessman of the Year or model Mr. Whoever don't look like you. But here was brassen from Cape Town who are now in the paper. Now they look like you.
Yeah.
So it becomes like, it's not like a far-fetched thing now, because this is prophets of the city. And I remember being a writer that was exposed to rapping in the church. I was like, yo, that's a quite name for a group, because they're not really prophets. Do you know what I mean? It was like
exactly.
that vibe.
Yes,
You're not
yes.
angry like, yo, I wish I came up with that name, because we're the real prophets. We are preaching or whatever. But it's like meeting them and checking, like for me at the time, Shaheen was probably the best rapper alive. Like for real. I was like, no one raps as quiet as this brother. Because he's from Cape Town.
Yeah.
And no one can DJ. Because you haven't seen other DJs, but you're like, already he's the best DJ in the world.
Exactly.
But you haven't. It's like
seen
women,
anything else.
like women say, all men are the same. And I'm like, have you tried old men? Like, how do you know?
Who
All men are the
says
same.
that?
Because some women are like,
you
they
get-
say, like,
What?
or they say, all men are dogs. And I'm like, how do you know? Have you been with old men? So you
I'm
got
like, wonder
so I'm just like, what? So when you say so and so's the best, it's like the best where? In Mitchell's Bay, in Cape Town, like where? It's cool. It's your best, man. What's better, strawberry or chocolate milkshake? Which one's the best? Depends.
Yeah.
So
And now fast forward.
fast forward, I produced the Ready D show for like 5 years, and now in 2021 the show moves into a daytime slot.
Yes,
It's now called The
how-
Good Vibes with DJ Ready D.
And how's the change been for you guys?
I have my nights free, which means I get to date my wife.
Lekker.
I get to spend time with my wife,
Yeah.
which is good. But she has her own business that I run with her. It's a dance school, so she also has classes in the evening. But it was weird because when I worked Monday to Thursday at night, I would leave in the evening and come home. Then she's sleeping, and in the morning, if I want to sleep late because I don't have to go to work, then she'd have stuff to do or whatever, and we just find time. And then now it's like I leave home in the morning like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever. I do the show and I come home like a normal working brain, the traffic, which I don't like, but it's okay.
Welcome to the traffic.
Yeah. So then I drive home, and then I've got the evenings free, which is cool, but it's only been, where we now in May? It's only been like 6 weeks. It's the second week of May. So change is always like, I don't, I don't hate it. I love it because I love my job. Yeah, I love my job. I'm getting used to it. D's definitely in his groove, and the transition's been amazing. Like D literally, like, in rap or in hip hop, we say he killed it. Like he killed his first day on air, and he didn't think he wouldn't. I'm not going to say I didn't think he would. I thought he would make more mistakes than he would have, and he didn't make mistakes. I thought it would go a little bit different because as a producer, I've sat with other presenters when they had change of shifts or whatever. And I mean, I can say this here, like once or twice in the first week, he would still say the Ready D show because he did it for 12 years or 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's not a mistake. That's just a thing that he's used to. But yeah, the music, a lot of people, and again, you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this, and not because I get a salary from the SABC, I'm going to say this. Good Hope FM is not a community radio station. It's a commercial radio station. I guess for the work that a lot of us who work for Good Hope do, we could be a public broadcaster. I mean, we could be a community station, but we're not. Bush is a community station. There's UCT, there's ECFM, UCT being a campus radio. And I did 7 years of campus radio. Just like people thought I was at Cape Tech, people thought I studied at UCT, but I didn't. I just worked at the radio
That was
station.
one of my questions I was going to ask you. Did you study
Because
there?
people are like, yo, you're there for 6 years, are you a lawyer, you're a doctor? Because I was there doing radio.
PhD.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a PhD in
in
DJ.
hip hop, exactly. But the thing is, so for me, it's a commercial radio station, commercial, commerce. So your Vodacoms, your Epsons, your Toyotas, and your ShopRites are buying airtime. They're buying advertising on the radio station. So the modus operandi, the thing, how this thing functions and how we get a salary and how the lights stay on and pay for the equipment and the cleaners and whatever is because of advertising. And then obviously there's music, so it's a music station. And people be like, yeah, but you're playing locally. No, we're just not playing your cousin's song, man. That's what you mean. It's not like we don't play local. Because you haven't listened to the station if you think we don't play local or we don't play, South African music. I also think that a lot of radio stations give off this idea that the only South African artist is aka Mikasa, Kurijana, Jimmy Nevis, and Youngster, and it's not the truth, obviously. Do you know what I mean? Or Black Coffee.
I'm glad it came out of your mouth.
I'm glad it came out of you.
No, I'm saying I'm a producer, and I'm saying if you listen to our show now, it's different.
And that's what I like about the fact that Ready D is now midday, because if you channel hop, the midday sounds the same
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, today, I was at home today because of my ear. I actually had the opportunity to listen to it, and it was so lekker.
But again, when you turn on daytime radio on any station, it's like it has just gone 6 minutes after 3, and it's in the and like people have watches. Why are you like? And who speaks like that in Cape Town? Man? If you're talking to Cape Town, so really he speaks to Cape Town. That's the part that we like.
Yes.
As his producer, he has a vision, and like I say, my job is to make sure that gets implemented, and then we still have rules and regulations and structure because that's our work. It's a job. Just like you can't walk into BMW. You can't do that. Or you can't show up at KFC and say, my bride, but it doesn't work like that. So it's a job. So people think because you're a nice guy outside of your working hours, it's just like, my bro's number. Like people literally WhatsApp us and go, play this. Or people will say, DJ, that song that played now, can you send it to me on WhatsApp? Like people do stuff like that. And it's interesting.
I miss the days when you could like put the cassette in and then you wait.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's like very weird. But there's the job, and if you do what you love, then you don't go with the job, man. Like I can tell you, and I've shared this with so many people in interviews. My previous station manager will tell you, I think the first month to 3 months I worked at the SABC, I didn't invoice them. I didn't ask for my money. And he literally got me in the car. He's like, you haven't invoiced us, so we're not going to pay you. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you must send us an invoice, then we pay you. So I'm like, oh, I forgot. And then automatically people think you a snob. They're like, oh, you got too much money. I was like, no, I had so much fun.
And
it wasn't the case because it wasn't. Look, it wasn't a lot of money when I started. It was really little money, and I don't want to say it's still little money, but it is still little money.
Look, whose salary is enough?
Exactly. But I'm saying it was a case of like it wasn't that much of a thing. And afterwards, I was like, actually, this is a good hustle because if I wait 3 months, the tax is different, man, as opposed to 1 month tax. But anyway, because now it's 1 month tax on this 3 months money instead of 1 month. But anyway, I was working with, think for yourself, man. Think of like your most favorite skateboarder.
Yeah.
And you like skateboarding. And then you work with him.
It's like, oh my God.
2-3 hours a day. And they pay you
here.
for it. Like imagine, So imagine you a racing driver and they like, oh, Lewis Hamilton's here and he's got a workshop. Come work with him for 2-3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it's like, if Reddy had a school and he was a teacher, that's okay. And if there was a book, but if you're spending time with someone, you're not getting what's in the book, man. You're getting a different side. You're getting him when he got a ticket from a traffic cop. You're getting him when Eskom gave load shedding to him. You getting him on the day that his son passed matric or his wife got a quiet birthday present or something is happening. You're getting all of that. So that's the person, man.
Yes.
So that's dope. And we've been friends, like I said, for a while. And
how do you guys balance your friendship?
When we just became friends, he invited me to his wedding, and I didn't think that. I was like, huh? He said, come to. I was like, what? It was very weird that I went to his wedding. Like people always ask about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I was at. Oh no, they got married and what? You were there? I'm like, yes, that's a long time ago, but I know them that long. But we weren't best friends then. The people that he knows them, and that's his friends. And it's not a case of like people fight, but you know how it is when people become famous. So everybody's always telling you, do you know DDD? Oh no, my cousin actually, my youngest, like his cousin or my neighbor's actually married to his sister. I'm like, that's okay, because I don't tell people I work with him. When people go, wait, what do you do at DJ? When you DJ? Oh, when you work in radio? We're at Good Hope. Oh, so you know DDD? Because I don't say I work at Good Hope as DDD's producer.
Yeah.
I just feel like, why, man? Like, unless it's gonna get me like free stuff, I'll say it all the time, but I don't, and I know it doesn't get you free stuff, so I don't say it. But people are funny in Cape Town.
Easy, I want to just get into another topic. I just want to ask because this is not a DDD show.
My coffee is cold. Yeah.